The Galactic Empire's council chamber was a monument to arrogance. Its vaulted ceilings shimmered with holographic constellations, and its walls were lined with the banners of 1,000 conquered worlds. At the center of the room, beneath a dome of swirling starlight, sat the Grand Viceroy, a towering figure with iridescent scales and eyes that glowed like dying suns. Around him, representatives from across the galaxy murmured in a dozen languages, their voices a low hum of indifference. And there, standing on a platform barely large enough to hold them, was humanity's delegation. For individuals who looked painfully small in the shadow of the Empire's might, Commander Elena Vasquez adjusted the collar of her uniform, her sharp green eyes scanning the room. She was a woman who carried authority like a second skin, her posture straight, her voice steady. Beside her, Dr. Raj Patel fidgeted with a holopad in his hands, his dark brows furrowed in concentration. Lila Chun, the youngest of the group, stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her expression a mix of awe and anxiety. And then there was Jax Morales, leaning casually against the railing, his leather jacket and cocky grin making him look wildly out of place. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, Elena began, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. We come before you not as equals, but as humble representatives of Earth, a world that has only recently joined your union. We bring a warning, one that cannot be ignored. The room fell silent, though not out of respect. The Grand Viceroy leaned forward, his scaled fingers steepled. A warning, you say? His voice was a deep rumble, laced with amusement. From a species that has barely mastered interstellar travel? Do enlighten us. Elena ignored the condescension, her tone unwavering. During a routine exploration of the Zeta 9 system, we discovered an ancient structure buried within an asteroid field. Our scans revealed it to be a weapon of unimaginable power, a relic from a civilization long extinct. Its activation protocols are still functional, and it is programmed to respond to any perceived threat with overwhelming force. A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. One of the council members, a serpentine creature with shimmering feathers, hissed, "And you expect us to believe that your primitive technology could decipher such a device?" Raj stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Our technology may not match yours, but our ingenuity does. We've analyzed the weapon's schematics and determined that it is capable of targeting entire fleets. If provoked, it could destroy everything in its path." The Grand Viceroy waved a hand dismissively. "A weapon from a bygone era, dormant for millennia, is no threat to the Galactic Empire. Your fear is understandable, but it is unfounded." Lila's cheeks flushed as she spoke up, her voice soft but determined. "With all due respect, Your Eminence, this isn't about fear. It's about caution. The weapon's AI is highly advanced and territorial. If it perceives your fleet as a threat, it will react without hesitation." Jax, who had been silent until now, smirked and added, "And trust me, you don't want to be on the receiving end of a pissed-off ancient death machine." The chamber erupted in laughter again, louder this time. The Grand Viceroy's glowing eyes narrowed. "Your attempts at humor are noted human, but the Empire does not take orders from lesser species. We will send a fleet to investigate this weapon and determine its value. You will accompany us as advisors, though I doubt your input will be necessary." Elena's jaw tightened, but she nodded. "As you wish. But remember, we warned you." The journey to the Zeta 9 system was a study in contrasts. The Empire's flagship, the Eclipse of Dawn, was a marvel of engineering, its corridors gleaming with polished metal, and its crew moving with robotic precision. The humans, by comparison, felt like intruders in a world that didn't want them. They were given cramped quarters and treated with barely concealed disdain. Elena spent most of her time in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars. Raj buried himself in his work, using every spare moment to refine his analysis of the weapon. Lila tried to bridge the gap between the humans and the alien crew, striking up conversations with anyone willing to listen. And Jax, he was in his element, slipping through the ship's shadows like a ghost, gathering information and making connections. One evening, as the ship neared the Zeta-9 system, the team gathered in their quarters to discuss their next steps. "They're not going to listen," Raj said, frustration creeping into his voice. "I've tried explaining the risks, but they're too arrogant to care." "Arrogance is their weakness," Elena replied, her tone steady. "We just have to be ready when it backfires." Lila frowned. "There has to be another way. Maybe if we can communicate with the weapon's AI, we can prevent it from activating." Jax leaned back in his chair, his boots propped up on the table. "Or we could just let the Empire walk into their own destruction. They've got it coming." Elena shot him a look. "We're not here for revenge, Jax. We're here to prevent a catastrophe." He shrugged. "Just saying, sometimes the universe has a way of balancing the scales." When the fleet arrived in the Zeta-9 system, the tension on the bridge was palpable. The weapon's location was marked by a massive asteroid, its surface scarred with ancient runes. The Empire's admiral, a stern-faced alien with a crest of bony spines, ordered the fleet to move closer. Elena stepped forward. "Admiral, I strongly advise against this. The weapon's sensors will interpret your approach as a hostile act." The Admiral didn't even look at her. "Your concerns have been noted, Commander. Now step aside." Raj exchanged a worried glance with Lila. "This is it," he muttered. "They're going to trigger it." As the fleet moved into position, the asteroid began to hum with energy. The runes glowed brighter, and a low, resonant tone filled the air. The Admiral's eyes widened in surprise, but it was too late. The weapon activated. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the asteroid, striking the eclipse of dawn with surgical precision. The flagship's shields flared and then collapsed, the ship disintegrating in a burst of light. The other vessels scrambled to retreat, but the weapon was relentless, its beams cutting through them like a scythe through wheat. Elena and her team watched in stunned silence as the Empire's fleet was obliterated in mere moments. When the dust settled, only a handful of ships remained, their crews too terrified to move. Jax let out a low whistle. "Well, that went about as well as expected." Elena turned to her team, her expression grim. "We warned them. Now it's up to us to clean up their mess." The screen flickered, showing the asteroid's surface cracking open to reveal the weapon's core, a pulsating, otherworldly structure that seemed to stare back at them. "Let's get to work," Elena said, her voice firm. "We've got a galaxy to save." The aftermath of the weapon's activation was chaos. The surviving ships of the Galactic Empire's fleet drifted aimlessly, their crews paralyzed by fear and disbelief. The once proud armada, a symbol of the Empire's invincibility, had been reduced to a scattering of broken hulls and flickering lights. On the bridge of one of the few intact vessels, the humans gathered, their faces illuminated by the glow of emergency consoles. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the room, her presence a stabilizing force amidst the turmoil. "Status report," she demanded, her voice cutting through the murmurs of the alien crew. A trembling officer, his scales dull with shock, stammered, "The weapon, it's still active. Scans show it's recharging. It could fire again at any moment." Raj Patel stepped forward, his holopad in hand. "We need to act fast. If we can't disable it, we need to at least buy ourselves some time. I've been analyzing its energy patterns. There's a brief window between discharges when its defenses are down. If we can get close enough, we might be able to hack into its core." Lila Chun, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, added, "And if we can communicate with its AI, we might be able to reason with it. It's not just a machine, it's a sentient being, following its programming. If we can show it we're not a threat, maybe it'll stand down." Jax Morales, leaning against a console with his usual nonchalance, smirked. "Or we could just blow it up. I'm just saying, sometimes the direct approach works." Elena shot him a look. "We're not here to destroy it, Jax. We're here to stop it. And we're going to need everyone's skills to pull this off." The team split up to prepare for their mission. Raj worked tirelessly, his fingers flying over the holopad as he refined his plan. He needed a way to interface with the weapon systems, something that could bypass its defenses long enough to deliver a shutdown command. The alien technology aboard the ship was unfamiliar, but Raj's adaptability and quick thinking allowed him to cobble together a makeshift device. Lila, meanwhile, focused on the weapon's language. The runes on the asteroid surface were a form of communication, a way for the weapon's creators to interact with their creation. She spent hours poring over scans, her mind racing as she tried to decipher their meaning. Her efforts were slow but steady, and she began to piece together a rudimentary understanding of the weapon's logic. Jax, ever the wild card, disappeared into the ship's underbelly. He returned hours later with a grin and a stolen shuttle. "Figured we'd need a way to get to the asteroid," he said, tossing a set of keys to Elena. "This baby's fast, and it's got enough firepower to keep us alive. For a little while at least." Elena raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly did you acquire this?" He shrugged. "Let's just say the Empire's security isn't as tight as they think it is." As the team prepared to depart, the alien crew watched them with a mix of awe and skepticism. The Empire's remaining officers, humbled by their near destruction, offered what little assistance they could. One of them, a young engineer named Kthar, approached Lila with a hesitant expression. "Your species," Kthar said, his voice tinged with curiosity. "You are different. You do not fear the unknown. You embrace it." Lila smiled. "We've had to. Our history is full of challenges, but we've always found a way to overcome them. That's what makes us strong." Kthar nodded slowly. "Perhaps there is much we can learn from you." The shuttle launched from the ship's hangar, its engines humming as it sped toward the asteroid. The weapon loomed ahead, its surface glowing with an eerie light. The team could feel its presence, a low thrum that resonated through the shuttle's hull. Raj adjusted the controls, his eyes fixed on the scanner. "We've got about 5 minutes before it recharges." "That's our window." Elena gripped the back of his seat, her gaze steady. "Do it." The shuttle dipped and weaved through the asteroid field, Jax's piloting skills keeping them one step ahead of the weapon's defenses. As they approached the asteroid surface, Raj activated the hacking device, its interface flickering to life. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, his fingers dancing over the controls. The device connected to the weapon systems, and for a moment, it seemed like it might work. Then the screen flashed red, and an alarm blared through the shuttle. "It's fighting back," Raj said, his voice tense. "I can't hold it." Lila leaned forward, her eyes scanning the runes on the weapon's surface. "Wait, let me try something." She began to input a sequence of commands, her movements deliberate and precise. The weapon's response was immediate, a series of pulses that echoed through the shuttle. "What are you doing?" Raj asked, his voice tinged with panic. "Talking to it," Lila replied, her focus unwavering. "It's not just a machine. It's trying to protect something. If we can show it we're not a threat, maybe it'll listen." The weapon's pulses grew slower, more rhythmic, as if it were considering her words. Then, without warning, the shuttle was rocked by a massive explosion. "Incoming!" Jack shouted, yanking the controls to the side. A beam of energy shot past them, narrowly missing the shuttle. Elena's voice was calm but urgent. "We're out of time. Raj, can you shut it down?" He shook his head. "Not from here. We need to get inside." The team exchanged a look, the weight of their mission settling over them. The weapon's core was their only hope, but reaching it would be a suicide run. Elena straightened, her resolve unshaken. "Then that's what we'll do. Jax, get us as close as you can. Raj, Lila, be ready. This isn't over yet." The shuttle surged forward, its engines roaring as it raced toward the asteroid surface. Behind them, the weapon's glow intensified, its next discharge imminent. The shuttle shuddered as Jax maneuvered it through the asteroid field, dodging debris and energy pulses with a mix of skill and reckless abandon. The weapon's core loomed ahead, a pulsating mass of light and machinery embedded deep within the asteroid. Its surface was a labyrinth of ancient runes and glowing conduits, a testament to the civilization that had built it and the power it still wielded. 30 seconds until it fires again, Raj called out, his voice tight with urgency. If we're not inside by then, we're toast. Elena gripped the back of Jax's seat, her eyes fixed on the weapon. Can you get us in? Jax grinned, his hands steady on the controls. I can get us close. The rest is up to you. The shuttle banked sharply, skimming the asteroid's surface as it approached the weapon's core. The runes glowed brighter, their light casting eerie shadows across the shuttle's interior. Lila leaned forward, her fingers tracing the patterns on her holopad. I think I've got it, she said, her voice tinged with excitement. The runes, they're not just warnings. They're instructions, a way to communicate with the AI. Raj glanced at her. Can you use them to shut it down? Maybe, she replied, but I'll need to be inside to do it. The shuttle jerked violently as another energy pulse shot past, narrowly missing them. Jax cursed under his breath. We're running out of time. Where's the entrance? Elena pointed to a jagged opening in the asteroid's surface, partially obscured by debris. There. Can you land us? Jax's grin widened. Landing's a strong word. Hold on. The shuttle dipped and weaved, its hull scraping against the asteroid as Jax guided it toward the opening. The team braced themselves as the shuttle slammed into the surface, skidding to a halt just inside the entrance. Everyone alive? Jax asked, his tone far too casual for the situation. Elena shot him a look. Let's move. The interior of the weapon's core was a maze of twisting corridors and glowing panels. The air was thick with the hum of machinery, and the walls seemed to pulse with energy. The team moved quickly, their footsteps echoing in the narrow passageways. Raj led the way, his holopad guiding them toward the central control room. This place is incredible, he muttered, his eyes wide with awe. The technology, it's like nothing I've ever seen. Lila followed close behind, her gaze fixed on the runes that lined the walls. It's not just technology, it's art. Whoever built this, they wanted it to last. Jax brought up the rear, his hand resting on the blaster at his side. Yeah, well, let's hope it doesn't last long enough to blow us to pieces. Elena's voice cut through the tension. Focus. We've got one shot at this. Raj, get us to the control room. Lila, be ready to talk to the AI. Jax, keep an eye out for any surprises. The team pressed on, their progress marked by the steady thrum of the weapon's energy. As they neared the control room, the corridors widened, opening into a vast chamber dominated by a massive, glowing core. The air crackled with energy, and the walls were lined with intricate machinery that seemed to shift and move on its own. This is it, Raj said, his voice barely above a whisper. The heart of the weapon. Lila stepped forward, her holopad in hand. I'll try to establish a connection. Raj, see if you can access its systems. As Lila began to input commands, the core's glow intensified and a low, resonant voice filled the chamber. Intruders detected. State your purpose. Elena stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. We are not your enemies. We come in peace. The voice paused, as if considering her words. Peace is irrelevant. This territory is protected. Any intrusion will be met with force. Lila's fingers flew over the holopad as she translated the runes. It's not malicious. It's just following its programming. We need to show it we're not a threat. Raj nodded, his hands moving over a nearby console. I'm in. I can try to override its protocols, but it's fighting me. Jax, who had been scanning the room for threats, suddenly shouted, Incoming! A section of the wall slid open, revealing a swarm of robotic drones. Their eyes glowed red as they advanced, their movements swift and precise. Elena drew her blaster. Jax with me. Raj, Lila, keep working. The drone surged forward, their weapons firing in a barrage of energy bolts. Elena and Jax returned fire, their movements a blur of precision and instinct. The air was filled with the crackle of blaster fire and the hum of the weapon's core. "We're running out of time," Raj shouted, his voice strained. "The weapon's charging again." Lila's voice cut through the chaos. "I've got it. I can communicate with it." She stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We are not your enemies. We seek to protect, not destroy. Let us help you." The core's glow flickered and the drones paused, their weapons lowering. The voice spoke again, softer this time. "Explain." Lila took a deep breath. "The ones who came before, they were not here to harm you. They were afraid. But we are different. We understand you. We can help you fulfill your purpose without destruction." The core's glow dimmed and the drones retreated. The voice was silent for a moment before responding. "Your words are unexpected, but they are logical." Raj let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "It's working." The weapon standing down. Elena lowered her blaster, her expression one of cautious relief. "Good. Now, let's make sure it stays that way." The weapon's core pulsed gently now. Its once threatening glow softened to a steady, almost soothing light. The chamber, which had been a cacophony of energy and tension, now felt eerily calm. The team stood together, their breaths still ragged from the fight, their eyes fixed on the core as it processed Lila's words. "It's listening," Lila said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But we need to give it a reason to trust us." Raj stepped forward, his holopad still in hand. "I can try to reprogram its directives. If we can show it that cooperation is more effective than destruction, maybe it'll stand down permanently." Elena nodded, her gaze steady. "Do it, but be careful. One wrong move, and we could trigger it again." Jax, who had been leaning against a console with his usual nonchalance, straightened up. "And what if it decides we're lying? We've got one shot at this. And I'd rather not be vaporized because it changed its mind." Lila turned to him, her expression firm. "It's not just a machine, Jax. It's sentient. It understands intent. If we're honest, it'll respond in kind." Jax raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" "No," she admitted, "but it's our best chance." Raj began inputting commands into the console, his fingers moving with practiced precision. The core's glow flickered in response, its hum shifting in tone. Lila watched the runes on the walls, her eyes darting as she translated their meaning. "It's asking for clarification," she said. "It wants to know what we intend to do." Elena stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. "We intend to protect, not just the system, but all systems. We believe in coexistence, not domination. If you stand down, we can work together to ensure that no harm comes to this territory or to anyone else." The core's glow intensified for a moment, then dimmed again. The voice spoke, its tone softer now. "Your words are unfamiliar, but they are intriguing. Explain further." Lila took a deep breath. "The ones who came before, they were afraid. They built you to protect them. But they didn't understand that fear only leads to more fear. We're different. We've learned from our mistakes. We want to build something better." The core was silent for a long moment, its hum fading to a near inaudible whisper. Then, slowly, the runes on the walls began to shift, their patterns rearranging into something new. Lila's eyes widened as she translated the message. It's offering us access," she said, her voice tinged with awe. "It wants to share its knowledge." Raj's hands froze over the console. "Are you sure? This could be a trick." Lila shook her head. "No, it's genuine. It's trying to understand us." Elena stepped forward, her expression resolute. "Then let's show it who we are." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Raj worked tirelessly to integrate the weapon systems with their own technology, creating a bridge between humanity's ingenuity and the ancient AI's vast knowledge. Lila acted as a translator, her understanding of the runes allowing her to communicate the team's intentions clearly. Jax kept watch, his sharp eyes scanning the chamber for any signs of trouble. And Elena coordinated their efforts, her leadership ensuring that every move was calculated and precise. As the final command was input, the core's glow stabilized, its hum now a steady, almost melodic tone. The voice spoke again, its words carrying a note of finality. Directives updated, protection protocols reconfigured, coexistence acknowledged. The team let out a collective breath, the tension in the room dissipating like a storm cloud after the rain. Raj slumped against the console, his face breaking into a tired smile. We did it. It's done. Lila's eyes sparkled with relief. It's more than done. It's a new beginning. Jax, ever the pragmatist, crossed his arms. Yeah, well, let's hope the Empire doesn't decide to come back for round 2. Elena's voice was firm. They won't. Not after this. They've seen what happens when they underestimate us. The journey back to the surviving fleet was a quiet one. The weapons core remained active but dormant, its new directives ensuring that it would no longer pose a threat. The Empire's remaining ships, their crews shaken and humbled, awaited the team's return. As the shuttle docked, the Grand Viceroy himself approached, his once arrogant demeanor replaced by something resembling respect. You have done what we could not, he said, his voice heavy with unspoken regret. The Empire owes you a debt. Elena met his gaze, her expression unyielding. We didn't do this for your gratitude. We did it because it was the right thing to do. But if you're serious about repaying that debt, there's something you can do. The Viceroy inclined his head. Name it. Learn from this, she said. Your arrogance nearly cost you everything. But it's not too late to change. Work with us, not as rulers, but as equals. The Viceroy was silent for a long moment, his glowing eyes studying her. Then, slowly, he nodded. Perhaps there is wisdom in your words. As the team prepared to return to Earth, they gathered one last time on the shuttle's observation deck. The stars stretched out before them, endless and full of possibility. Think they'll listen? Raj asked, his voice quiet. Elena smiled. Maybe not today, but someday. And when they do, we'll be ready. Lila leaned against the railing, her gaze distant. It's funny, isn't it? We came here to stop a weapon, but in the end, we might have started something much bigger. Jax chuckled. Yeah, well, let's just hope the next ancient death machine we run into is a little more chatty. The team laughed, the sound echoing through the shuttle as it sped toward home. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. And in doing so, they had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology or its might, but its ability to adapt, to create, and to hope.